lots more, like Kanda, Nihonbashi, and Kyobashi, right? Because the city grew, it got to be denoted to be a larger area, and basically this is really the kind of center of old Tokyo. Okay. Also, Ueno is in Shitamachi, right? In fact, you can go to the Shitamachi Museum, which is in Ueno, and I'll talk about that in another podcast, alright? It actually got its own language called Yamanote Kotoba, which is dialect of the Yamanote, and this is kind of a way of talking, right? And this is kind of actually what became the standard language in Japan after Meiji Restoration. Alright, so this is Yamanote, okay, on the other side of Tokyo. Right, so Shitamachi was kind of a low area. They didn't use this higher dialect, which became the dialect of the nation. This was kind of a low country. Alright, so let's talk about Shitamachi. What's happened to it? Why is it so popular now? Well, basically in the 1980s it became very popular. Alright. And a lot of people became interested in Shitamachi culture and history, right? Especially during old Edo times, because this is the origins of the city of Tokyo. A lot of people are interested in old Edo. And when you say old Edo, as you know, because Tokyo Joe knows Tokyo, you're talking about the old Shitamachi, alright? So even though they didn't get the language, it was the Yamanotes who gave the language to the country, basically, the dialect, the Yamanote Kotoba. Shitamachi had other things that made it kind of special, alright? A lot of these places have a lot of nostalgia, right? And it's a very low part of the city, and you can see a lot of old stuff there. So there you go, guys. Yamanote is the upper class area. This is where the palace is, and this is where the shoguns used to live, and the daimyos and everyone else. Okay? And on the east side, east of the river, the Sumida, where the sky tree is, this is called the Shitamachi. Alright, so Yamanote's got the language it gave the country, and the Shitamachi's got the low part of the city that reminds people of the Edo times. Okay guys, time for the next part of the podcast. Hope you enjoy listening. Alright, time for the news. In other news, a 34-year-old man gone swimming in the Imperial Moat. Well, not exactly, but he was throwing packs of bathing products into it. Maybe he wanted to go for a swim after he threw in all his bath salts and his bath balls. But he was throwing all his bathing products into the moat in the Imperial Palace. And before he actually did it, he said, "Hey guys, the Ryukyu people are an indigenous people, amen." Kind of interesting. Well, he didn't actually get to have a swim, but it sounds like he wanted to have some kind of bath because he was throwing all these bathing products into the moat. It brings me to remind me of a story a few years ago of a crazy British man who lived in Spain. And this guy, back in, I reckon it was around 2000 and, oh gosh, a long time ago now, a couple of years ago at least. Well, this guy back in 2008 went for a swim. He's a 40-year-old British tourist. He actually went for a swim around the Imperial Moat. He was on a sightseeing trip with some Spanish tourists, and he dived into the moat around about 11:30 a.m. And he actually visited, before he dived into the moat, the foreign police box for some crazy reason. and they said something like they dropped the bag into the moat and they needed something to fish it out with, and I guess he decided to have a swim. Kind of interesting, huh? When he got out, it was kind of funny because he was cornered by some Japanese police, and it took about 50 police officers to stop him, and he was cornered, and they had a big pole with a hook on the end to kind of get him, and they got him, because you don't go swimming in the Imperial Moat. Those of you thinking of coming to Tokyo, you want to go have a swim, please don't do it in the Imperial Moat. It's sacred ground, okay? There are all the places you can have a swim, and Tokyo Imperial Moat ain't one of them. So, this is kind of a crazy story. Don't throw your bath soaps into the moat, and don't go swimming in the moat, because things ain't going to work out too nice for you. In other news, this is kind of interesting because I spoke about this in another podcast, and I haven't actually had a chance to speak further about it. A couple of years ago, the British journalist came over and started talking about a thing called drifting. And drifting is actually been popular in Japan for many years. And of course, back in a few years ago, the film Tokyo Drift came out, Fast and Furious, much famous movie. A lot of people liked it. As the first one had Vin Diesel. A lot of people liked that one too. Well, drifting's been around for a long time, and a lot of people have been drifting here for many, many years. But some newbie journalists from the United Kingdom came over like a peckerhead and said, "Hey everyone, Japan's really cool, look at the people drifting," as if it was something new. In fact, there's been many movies made about drifting here in Tokyo for many years, going back 20 years. And drifting itself goes back 30, 40 years. But you can hear that on my other podcasts. I want to talk today about the decision made by the BBC to cancel Stephen Fry in Japan. Now, Stephen Fry is a popular British comedian slash gay man slash journalist guy. And he was actually the host of a BBC program, which we talked about in the previous podcast, talking about the unluckiest man in the world. Okay? And you can hear about that in the podcast. Well, basically, after the joke, Stephen Fry basically said, "I'm amazed the Japanese trains are still running after the blast." This is kind of funny because I know in Britain right now they're actually using trains made by Japan.